Today our lesson is Accentuate the Negative 2.1, and our focus today is on adding integers. Okay, just to review, let's talk about some number pairs that equal 0. So if I gave you $1, but then I take the dollar away, how much are you left with?
0.
Okay. Well, what about in football? What if you're pushed 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage? What integer would represent being pushed 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage, Jay?
-3.
Alright, so if you're pushed 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage, but then on the next play, you gain 3 yards, what integer would that be, Paige?
0.
What integer represents gaining 3 yards?
+3.
Alright, so then we're back to, again, where we started, and we're at 0. Okay, so what we want to start with today is thinking about the rule for adding these integers. And then once we figure out the rule, then we keep using the rule every time we see an adding integers problems, and then we'll get the answer right. Okay, we are not using calculators. This is going to be in our head work. You can do this. All right, so let's start with something very basic to see the rule. I'm going to write figuring out the rule. Let's zoom in a little bit. All right, so if I have a +3 and I want to add a +2. All right, so you can take your chips for each time we work with these numbers. Even when they're basic numbers, we're still going to model it out so that we can figure out this rule. So we have a +3, and we're adding a +2. And so that I can keep it in my notes, I'm going to have the dots in red as well. Alright, so all I have to do is combine. Nothing's canceling out.
You got 5.
So I'll have a +5. Alright, so now let's write this rule. So if we have a positive and we add another positive, our answer will also be good. Okay? So that's the first part of the rule. Okay? Now let's work with the negative side. All right, what if I have a -3 and I want to add a -4? Okay, now notice I'm putting my -4 in parentheses. That's not for multiplying in this case. I just don't want you to get confused between this plus and this negative sign. And so we go ahead and put it in parentheses to make sure it's crystal clear. Alright, so if we have a -3, and we have a -4, and we need to combine those, we have our addition sign.
Is that yellow?
I know it's yellow, the projector's not working properly. Alright, so if we have a -3, and we're combining that with a -4. Alright, well, how many total do I have here in my stack?
7.
Okay. So I have 7 that are yellow, and remember the yellow represent negative, so my answer is
-7.
Okay, very good.
Yellow were for positive.
Did I just do it backwards?
You just said that the yellow were for negative, but isn't that the
It's
good?
okay.
That's fine.
It's okay. Just keep going.
Man. But I don't want it to be like that. I want it to be right. I am. Okay. Yes. I wonder why I did that in my old notes. I wonder why I did that. I had the red and yellow flipped from a long time ago. There. Okay. So now the rule. So if I have a negative number and I add another negative number, my answer will be, okay, good. All right, so we can also show these, we've done them through the chip model, but we can also show these through a number line. All right, what if we do a number line here, and I want to show maybe 7 plus 4. All right, so if I start at 7, and if I'm playing a football game, I'm on the 7-yard line. I've got to go all the way to the other end of the field. All right, but I gained 4 yards. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I gain 4 yards. So now I'm on the 11-yard line. So 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So that works. Okay, what if I want to try,
You got 2 flames. Yeah.
what? Something is wrong with me today, y'all. Woo, all right.
Said that.
All right, so what if I start at -8, and then I want to go, I want to add a -2. Okay, so if I start at -8, then I need to add a -2 this way. And end here.
It's -2.
And then 8, 9, 10 is correct, and I stay in negative world. All right, so now try a problem that we can't really use our counters for. You just need to take the rule, and we're going to apply this rule. All right, so what if I have -158, and I want to add a -3? Try that. Follow your rule. All right, who found that? Seth.
Negative 161.
58, 59, 60, 61. 161, and they're both negative, and so my answer will be negative. Perfect. All right, let's try some more. All right, so let's go with negative 4, and I want to add 6 this time. All right, so this is a little different. Before we either had 2 positives or 2 negatives, and that was very easy. So think back to our football problem. Okay, we're on this play and we lose 4 yards. But then on the very next play we gain 6 yards. So think about moving back and forth on a football field as you're gaining and losing. So let's look at our chips first. All right, so negative 4. We'll have to put 4 red chips up there for negative 4. Positive 6. Put 6 yellows. All right, and so what we're going to do is take away 1 negative and 1 positive, and this is all right because in reality we're taking away 0 because remember negative 1 and positive 1 equal what? Negative 1 and positive 1 equal to 0. So that's why we were allowed to do that. All right, so let's see. We're going to take away 1 negative and 1 positive until we have only 1 color remaining. And you can do that with your own model. All right, and so what are we left with?
Positive 2.
Positive 2. All right, and if you want to show this on your paper, okay, you can show your dots, and then you can show canceling your dots out. And then you're left with positive 2. Okay, I want you to try 3 on your own, well, in your group. So you're trying these on your own. You can work with your chips. Or if you've already figured out the rule, you can just work it. And if you're done early, make sure your group member knows what we're doing.
Oh, do you want to
I want you to work these 3. Negative 3 plus 2. 8 plus a negative 3. And then negative 3 plus a 6. Alright, so on the first one, Jordan, what did you get? A -1. Let's check his work. Alright, so I have 3 negative. And I have 2 positive. Alright, and so I'll take 1 away from each until I'm left with 1. And they're correct. I've got a -1. Alright, what about on this second example? Bailey?
I got +5.
She has +5. Let's check her work. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then a -3. Can I borrow one yellow? Okay, it's okay. Alright. Alright, so we'll take 1 away from each color. So I am left with a +5. I just did it backwards again. Honestly, as long as your colors are different colors, you can see and know which color's which, you're fine. Alright. -3, +6. There. That's right. Alright. And Shelby. +3 is correct. Okay, now try it with a problem you can't use counters with. -100 plus a +200. What do y'all think? Peyton, what do you think?
+100.
He thinks +100. I agree. What if I had 2 plus a -58? Paige?
+56? No.
Close. Alright, so here's our rule. If we have a positive plus a negative, or the reverse, if we have a negative plus a positive, we will subtract and take the sign of the larger number. Okay? So, if the signs are the same, just add and keep the sign. But if the signs are different, we have to subtract and keep the sign of the larger number. See? 58 is bigger than 2, so we had to keep the negative sign. 200 is bigger than 100, so we had to keep the positive sign. Back to our other examples. 6 is bigger than 3, we kept positive sign. 8 is bigger than 3, so we kept the positive sign. And then 3 is bigger than 2, so we kept the negative sign. Okay, one other thing I want to remind you of that you'll see on your independent practice is using some other rational numbers with positives and negatives. So, like on page 24, let's see. Number 4B. Actually, no, well, it doesn't matter. Either one. All right. So we have -1.5. And we want to add a negative 3/4. All right, so think about our rules. When we think about our rules, what will our answer be? Will our answer be a positive or a negative number? Because our rule is if we have a negative and a negative, the answer is still going to be negative. All right, so let me remind you of how we're going to add fractions because you're not using your calculators today. So let's watch. First of all, I like to line them up vertically. So I've got negative 1.5. Adding that to negative 3/4. Okay, you can't add fractions unless you have a common denominator. So I look at 2 and 4. I can see that 4 will be a great common denominator. 2 goes into 4 how many times?
2.
So multiply times 2, top and bottom. And then 4 times 1 is 4, so 3 times 1, that stays the same. They're both still negative. Now I can combine. So then I'll end up with 3 and 2 gives me 5. 1 and 0 is 1. Okay, but that's not in simplest form because I have an improper fraction here. So I have to change this to a mixed number. How many times does 4 go into 5? And what's left over? 1. Keep the same denominator. So then I add this other one back, which will give me, I'm out of room, negative 2 and 1/4. Okay? Questions?